Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Bhutam dhammam sangham namasami. So welcome again, everyone. This evening, I'd like to reflect on a simile, a sutta that is named after a simile. It's the simile of the saw, and that's in the middle length discourses. It's number 21 in the middle length discourses, and this sutta is remembered most. It's a well-known sutta, and it's remembered by the graphic simile at the end of the sutta. And that's it. I think when you hear this, the title of the sutta, that's what people will think about or remember if they've read it. And this sutta is actually quite rich in teachings. And I've only touched on, I haven't touched on, I won't be touching on the entire depth of the sutta. It's so powerful, but I think there's some important points that should be considered. And it really, it's talking about our response to situations, that how to protect our minds from unwholesome mental states, no matter what's happening externally. I think this is the real heart of the sutta, is that to train ourselves, no matter how people are behaving towards us, what they say to us, or how they're behaving towards us. So it's a challenge. This is a challenge and a training, actually. The Buddha repeats again and again these trainings, which I'll talk about here. But it starts out with this one particular monk, Venerable Paguna, who he's associating too closely with the bhikkhunis, with the female monastics, and if anyone says anything about the bhikkhunis, he gets really angry and he gets very defensive. And if anybody says anything about Venerable Paguna in front of the bhikkhunis, they get angry. So there's too close of an association, and it's not really appropriate the way he's behaving. So the bhikkhus notices this is going on, and they bring the matter to the Lord Buddha, and the Lord Buddha requests that Venerable Paguna is brought to him. And so this is a pretty standard pattern, where a monk will be misbehaving somehow, and then the other bhikkhus will bring the matter to the Buddha, and the Buddha says, bring that, and ask him to come to me. And then the Lord Buddha says, is it true that you did this? They said, what the other bhikkhus are saying about you, is this true, that you're associating too closely with the bhikkhunis? And then he answers yes. Venerable Paguna answers yes. So this is standard. So the Lord Buddha doesn't just take the other bhikkhus' words for it. He says, is it true or not? And I think this is a teaching in itself, that if we're hearing or even noticing something that doesn't seem quite right, we might question the other person instead of jumping to the conclusion that that's so. So we need to hear the other person's story first. What if they say, "Oh yes, excuse me, I was doing that." Calling it to a person's attention, sometimes maybe they're not really aware that it's impacting other people, or that there's something off with their behavior. So this is one thing that I'd like to bring out, that the Lord Buddha doesn't just all of a sudden start scolding a monk because he heard that he's doing such and such. That he asks the monk, so then the Lord Buddha does start to reprimand this particular monk, and he's basically saying, no matter what anyone says about the bhikkhunis or about himself, that he shouldn't be upset and angry. It's not appropriate behavior. And then he gets into a teaching. It develops into a teaching to all the bhikkhus there. You can imagine that the monk is brought before the assembly, and there's a whole assembly of monks. It could be bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, lay people. Often he'll only address the most senior people in the assembly. Like if it's an assembly of lay people, the village elder will be addressed, but everybody else is hearing it. So in this case, he's just addressing the bhikkhus. So then he gets into a teaching about how we may be spoken to. This is Bhante Sujato's translation. He says, mendicants, there are these 5 ways in which others might speak to you. Their speech may be timely or untimely, true or false, gentle or harsh, beneficial or harmful, from a heart of loving kindness or from inner hate. So these are 5 ways that we may be spoken to. And then he says that no matter how we're spoken to, then our mind should be unaffected, and we should not have any hatred towards that person. Instead, we should be compassionate and pervade them with a heart of loving kindness. So this teaching, this training is repeated again and again in the sutta. So there's a issue of the speech being timely or untimely. And this is, I think some of us have had the experience of hearing something after the fact, like you shouldn't have put that thing there because it's going to fall. And it's already like, you've already experienced the thing falling, right? Something, I don't know. They'll tell you after you've done something that wasn't the appropriate way to do it. And it's already kind of after the fact. And then you think, oh, why didn't they tell me this sooner? So this is kind of an example. Or you're in the middle of doing something and they're telling you about something that's not related to what you're busy and you're trying to, finish cooking or I don't know what you're doing, but you're in the middle of some important task and they're talking to you about something unrelated. And it's something really important that you should know about, but you can't give the attention. So that would be another example of untimeliness. And it may be important information, or it might, and we want to be able to pay attention, but we can't. So this is, or it's untimely because you're extremely tired and it's bedtime. There's many different ways it can be untimely. In any case, whether it's timely or untimely, true or false. If it's especially if it's false, that's going to be maybe offensive to you. You might have, if you find out somebody's lying to you, might have a sense of righteous indignation. You know, how can they lie to me like that? And so we have to really guard our minds against anger. Gentle or harsh. If somebody's speaking to us harshly, we're more likely to get angry in return. Or we might sense, the last one is with a heart of loving kindness or with inner hate. So if we are sensing anger and hatred directed towards us and someone is speaking to us in this manner, it's very difficult for us not to respond in kind. But there's another teaching that the Buddha says, it's in the Dhammapada verses. He says, hatred never ends by hatred, but by love alone, by loving kindness alone does it end. So if we're responding in anger, resentment, irritation, it's just going to perpetuate that. So this is what the Buddha is trying to discourage. So this is the training. So we have these 5 courses of speech, which is either timely or untimely, true or false, harsh or gentle or harsh. Then there's, I didn't speak about whether it's beneficial or harmful. That's another one. Could be useless also, useless or something that's important to know, useful information. And then spoken with heart of loving kindness or inner hate. So the training here is we should think, my mind will be unaffected. I will utter no evil words. I will remain full of compassion with a heart of love, with no secret hate. That's how you should train. So there's this word unaffected. It's your heart or your mind will remain unaffected. So if someone is speaking to you either way, whether it's timely or untimely, truthful or false, gentle or harsh, beneficial or useless, with a heart of loving kindness or inner hate, no matter how they speak to us, our minds should remain unaffected. So we're trying to develop here equanimity. And, so that might seem strange whether somebody is speaking to us with kindness and beneficial, but we won't be thrown off by this. Our minds won't be disturbed in any way, whether it's like kind of uplifted and pleasant and all this, but it could be stirring the mind up in a way that's not wholesome. So we're trying to develop, the ideal is to develop equanimity, no matter how they're speaking to us. We're not always wanting things to be just the way we would hope it to be. And, so it's a training. This is how you should train. And there's this, the Pali is na chewa me chitam vipari natam. And the vipari natam is like translated as perverted changed, and even it says lustful is one of the translations, but it's na is negating that. So this won't be where mind won't be affected, won't be changed, won't be perverted by outside influences. We'll have a steady mind. So our minds, our hearts will remain unaffected. We will utter no evil words. We will abide compassionate for their welfare without inner hate. We shall abide pervading that person with a mind or heart imbued with loving kindness. So, so we won't respond in kind, like if they're speaking to us harshly, that we won't speak back to them harshly. We won't say anything, retributive or accusative. Yeah, the word evil is kind of a strong word. It's hard, like, to translate some of these Pali words in a word that, with words that don't have a lot of baggage along with it from maybe our upbringing. The evil is kind of strong. Bhante Sujato says bad words, but harmful, unskillful. We shall abide compassionate for their welfare without inner hate. So we're starting out with equanimity, and then we go to compassion. They've translated anukampa. That's actually another word for compassion. Karuna is a word that maybe more people are familiar with, the Pali word karuna, and that's a Brahma Vihara. But this is anukampa, which is also another word for compassion. So abiding with compassionate for their welfare. So if they're hateful or unskillful, they're not speaking to us at the right time, to have compassion for the other person, no matter how they're speaking to us. We shall abide pervading that person with a mind or heart imbued with loving kindness. So I think the training here is this is 3 of the 4 Brahma Viharas. Of the Brahma Vihara is a heavenly abode, divine abodes. These are mental qualities that we develop. We can develop them throughout the day or on the cushion. So if we're already developing these qualities in ourselves, then it's more easy when, no matter how people are speaking to us. Mudita isn't mentioned here. This is altruistic joy or sympathetic joy, which is a 3rd of the 4 Brahma Viharas. And I think it's hard to be really rejoicing in other people's goodness if they're not being quite kind or they're not behaving so well. So it may be that this is, but mudita certainly is a quality we should be developing, and it will help us, I think, in situations like this where later we can think about the goodness of that person. That person's not going to be all bad normally. You're gonna find some good qualities in them. So so these are qualities we develop over time. And it's a really challenging to think that no matter how people are speaking to us, how they're treating us, that our minds will be unaffected. That sounds almost impossible, maybe to some people, that that we can't, that we won't respond by being angry, or in turn, if somebody's really speaking to us in an improper way. But this takes time, like I was saying, developing the Brahma Viharas, and really considering each person with compassion and with loving kindness. So there's a number of similes in this sutta, and this particular simile I thought was really beautiful. It's called the simile of the sal grove. And the Buddha starts out saying, give up what's unskillful and devote yourself to skillful qualities. After he's given the teaching for a while, this simile appears. And he says, suppose that not far from a town or village, there was a large grove of sal trees that was choked with castor oil weeds. Then along comes a person who wants to help and protect and nurture the grove. They cut down the crooked sal saplings that were robbing the sap and throw them out. They clean up the interior of the grove, which I think means they would weed out the castor oil plants that were choking the saplings. They clean up the interior of the grove and properly care for the straight, well-formed sal saplings. In this way, in due course, that sal grove would grow, increase, and mature. So I looked up about sal trees, and it takes about 30 years for them to grow, and they grow something like 30 meters or something. They could get really tall, and they're often, I think it's in Nepal and India, they have these sal groves, and they they're like a sanctuary for people. And so they're providing shade, they flower, there's a source of beauty, and I think they even have some kind of fruit. But and the wood can be used for various things. And then I also saw that they were the abode of the local goddess, or the deva. the village deva would live in the grove. So it's like a sacred place. So it's like we're creating this sanctuary within ourselves. We're nurturing these wholesome qualities. So he says, in the same way, mendicants, you should give up what's unskillful and devote yourself to skillful qualities. In this way, you'll achieve growth, improvement, and maturity in the teaching and training. So I thought it was a beautiful simile. So it takes time. We can't just expect, like if you're a gardener, you understand this, especially with trees. It takes a while for a tree to develop. So if you're nurturing this grove within yourself, you're going to provide for yourself and for others a sanctuary, a place of beauty, a safe place. So as I was saying, 3 of the 4 Brahma Viharas are in this teaching, and I'm going to repeat it again. It's really good to hear this again and again, and it almost, well, I've been trying to memorize this particular phrase. So no matter how people speak to us or treat us, he says, the Buddha encourages us to think this. Our minds, our hearts will remain unaffected. This is upekkha. We shall utter no evil words. We will abide compassionate, and that's the karuna, for their welfare, and without inner hate. We shall abide pervading that person with a mind imbued with loving kindness. And this is metta. And starting with that person, we will pervade the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with loving kindness. So this is how we should train ourselves. And the 5 courses of speech, we can train ourselves not only to have our minds unaffected by how other people speak to us and still be compassionate and full of metta, but we should also consider these the training of the speech to err on the side of the positive speech. Maybe not err, but train ourselves to speak in this way. So there's a teaching in the numerical discourses, and it's when you're speaking or reproving another person, you have to, he says, this is how you should speak. I will speak at the right time, not at the wrong time. I will speak truthfully, not falsely. I will speak gently, not harshly. I will speak beneficially, not harmfully. I will speak lovingly, not from inner hate or secret hate. So you can recognize this. So just to embrace this teaching as wise speech, speaking at the right time, speaking truthfully, speaking gently, speaking about what's beneficial, and speaking with loving kindness. So this is a training in itself. So if we're speaking to other people in this way, it's going to affect how they respond to us. And we're protecting ourselves and other people at the same time. So if we're cultivating loving kindness within ourselves, honesty within ourselves, the kind of conscientiousness to be, and consideration to consider, is this the right time or wrong time to be speaking to this person about this? Can it wait? If we make an effort to keep our speech timely, truthful, gentle, beneficial, and spoken with a heart of loving kindness, others will respond well to us, and we'll have no regrets regarding unwholesome speech. So this is a training as well as how we respond to others, how we speak to others. So there's a number of other similes in here that before the simile of the saw. And I can use these as an illustration as the Lord Buddha had to the bhikkhus. And this is a simile called the Great Earth. And it says, suppose a person were to come along with a spade and basket and say, I shall make this great earth without earth. And they would dig all over, scatter all over, spit all over, urinate all over, saying, be without earth, be without earth. And what do you think, monks? Could that person make the great earth be without earth? And of course they say, no, sir. Why is that? Because this great earth is deep and limitless. It's not easy to make it to be without earth. That person will eventually only get weary and frustrated. So this is then he says, in the same way, there are these 5 ways that others may criticize you. Their speech may be timely or untimely, true or false, gentle or harsh, beneficial or harmful, from a heart of love or secret hate. When others criticize you, they may do so in any of these ways. If this happens, you should train yourself thus. Our minds will remain unaffected. We will blurt out no bad words. We will remain full of compassion with a heart of love and no secret hate. This is Bhante Sujata's translation, so it's a little bit different. We will meditate, spreading a heart of love to that person, and with them as a basis, we will meditate, spreading a heart like the earth to everyone in the world, abundant, expansive, limitless, free of enmity and ill will. That is how you should train yourselves. So, like the earth. So it's a heart that's deep and limitless. And then there's another simile about pictures in the sky. I shall draw pictures in the sky. Suppose a person was to come along with dye, such as red lac, turmeric, indigo, or rose madder. So these are colors that they had in the time of the Buddha, and say, I shall draw pictures in the sky, making pictures appear there. What do you think? Could that person draw pictures in the sky? No, sir. Why is that? Because the sky is formless, invisible. It's not easy to draw pictures there. That person will eventually get weary and frustrated. So the mind is unaffected by words or thoughts or ideas. These are, you can't, it's the space element. It's talking about the space element, the sky, and you can't establish anything there. So if you don't have a place for these thoughts to establish themselves, this is an Ayya. This is like, so the whatever they're saying, you're not going to let it stick. You're not going to let it affect you, because it's not going to remain there. You know what the unhelpful part of it won't remain. You won't keep ruminating about it later. So this is formless. The sky is formless and invisible. So your mind will remain that way. In the same way, there are 5 ways that others might criticize you. And then it goes through the whole training about the mind being unaffected. I will utter no evil words. I will have compassion for their welfare. And with them as a basis, I will pervade the all-encompassing world with a heart imbued with loving kindness. With a heart like the sky. It's limitless. No place for these unwelcome words to establish themselves. There's a number of other similes about somebody trying to burn up the Ganges River with a torch. And do you think a person could burn or scorch the Ganges River with a blazing torch? Then of course not. And why is that? Because the Ganges River is deep and limitless. It's vast and powerful. So the mind, we're developing a mind that's not limited, it's limitless in it. And so anything that someone may say to us is not going to affected, just like the river is so vast. It's not going to be harmed by somebody trying to burn it with a torch. And this is another one that's, it's interesting, is the catskin bag. Suppose there was a catskin bag that was rubbed, well rubbed, very well rubbed, soft, silky, rid of rustling and crackling. So it's a very soft leather. And that then a person comes along carrying a stick or stone and says, I will make the soft catskin bag rustle and crackle with the stick. And do you think that could happen? And the bhikkhus say, no, because the catskin bag is, well rubbed and smooth, soft, silky, rid of rustling and crackling. So I was thinking about what this simile is trying to indicate, and then I thought about the softness and the suppleness and the flexibility. It's gentle, it's quiet, soft. So it's not going to be affected by anything that anyone says. The mind is soft, flexible, supple, quiet. In the same way, there are 5 ways in which others may criticize you. And I couldn't find criticize actually in the Pali. This is Bhante Sujato's translation somehow, but I guess he's getting the idea that because of this sutta that was actually meaning criticism. So there are 5 ways others may talk or criticize you. Their speech may be timely or untimely, true or false, gentle or harsh, beneficial or harmful, with the heart of love or secret hate. When others criticize you, they may do so in many ways, in these ways. If that happens, you should train yourself like this. Our minds will remain unaffected. We'll blurt out no bad words. We will remain full of compassion with a heart of love and no secret hate. We will meditate spreading a heart of love to that person, and with them as a basis, we will meditate spreading a heart like a catskin bag to everyone in the world, abundant, expansive, limitless, free of enmity and ill will. That is how you should train. So those are the similes leading up to the famous simile of the saw. And if you don't know this one, here it comes. So this is Bhante Sujato's translation. And so it's a very challenging simile, and this is what you'll probably remember from this whole talk. But I'm hoping you also remember the parts about speech and our minds being unaffected. So it says, even if low-down bandits were to sever you limb from limb, anyone who has a malevolent thought on that account would not be following my instructions. This is the Lord Buddha saying if you're not following my instructions, if you hate that person who's cutting you limb from limb, if that happens, you should train yourself thus. Our minds will remain unaffected. We'll blurt out no bad words. We'll remain full of compassion with a heart of love and no secret hate. We will meditate spreading a heart of love to that person, and with that person as a basis, we'll meditate spreading a heart full of love to everyone in the world, abundant, expansive, limitless, free of enmity and ill will. That is how you should train. If you frequently reflect on this advice, the simile of the saw, do you see any criticism, large or small, that you could not endure? So he's using this as a high bar for us. And then I want to add that doesn't mean that we should put up with abuse. Certainly not. And there are suttas that tell us that we actually should avoid harmful situations. We shouldn't allow ourselves to be, if we can avoid it. But I mean, there's situations that we just can't avoid, or especially speech. So we're probably not going to encounter bandits with a saw. And but we're likely to encounter people that aren't speaking to us the way we would like to. So this is the heart of the teaching, is that we as he's saying here, if you frequently reflect on this advice, do you see any criticism, large or small, that you could not endure? This is his point here, and that to develop our minds so that we remain equanimous no matter what's happening. So I'd like to offer this reflection on this beautiful sutta for your consideration, and open it up, this conversation up, for any questions or comments.
Sadhu, 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 anumodami.
I hear Ayya Zoka's voice.
Yes, I.
Ayya, do you have any thoughts or corrections or advice on this sutta?
Well, I want to give the time to others, and I just want to say how much I love this teaching. It's so beautiful and valuable and excellent. My heart just sings to hear it. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. And I wanted to share the word for criticism that's used here in this sutta, because you were asking about it, is awanna. Awanna. So awanna means color, or varna, and it's used for health or beauty, and awana would be off-colored. So it's some awana bhasita is then saying something that's off-color, that's or not healthy, not beautiful. And so that's the word that's being translated here as criticism.
Thank you.
Just reflecting off color, not healthy, not beautiful. I was just reflecting on these similes related to the four great elemental properties, and then the connection in this practice between the four great elemental properties, which we know we can see reflected physically. Also, these great elemental properties we can see emotionally and also mentally. And then it's really like a practice, like a training, like it's really working into our minds, the connection between the loving kindness, the Brahmavihara Bhavana, and these great elemental properties, as we can see in everything that we think of as self, body, feelings, and mind, and just how useful to be able to, practicing with these, to be able to then remember them, whether it's seeing those qualities in the body or in the feelings or in the mind, and just with the training, and just go to having very thoroughly worked it in and come back to it again and again, to just go to these reflections where the harmful, off-color, unbeautiful, unhealthy things just don't seep in, they don't prickle in, they don't stick, they don't, you don't get carried away by them. And what a great refuge. What a useful training to really just work with this and train this in such that it becomes second nature when things occur, that this comes up in our mind very quickly, in our habit, what's habitual, the way we turn our minds, and not only second nature, but even then becomes first nature, because truly it's wana. Our minds and hearts and the way we're going with it is healthy and beautiful. Thank you for your patient listening. I'd like to hear from others.
Sadhu, Ayya. That was beautiful. Yes. Awana. So I will try to find that. I was looking because I was clicking on the words, but it may appear later also in the sutta, because the training develops along the way. So thank you. That's really beautiful.
I just put it in the chat.
Awanam pasati.
Yes.
Thank you.
Pasati is the speech then. To speak.
So do others have questions or comments? Anyone here with a question or comment? Can unmute yourself if you. Yes.
I guess I have yes. I'm staying in the yurt right now. I wanted to comment. I really liked that you had mentioned about the flexible mind, because I think sometimes when I hear the teachings, I think sometimes it's easy to hear it almost like a command, like almost like a militant kind of attitude, like don't do that. But I think that when you use the word flexible, I think that's not, and then I reflect on that, I'm like, I don't think that's the true teaching. I think the true teaching isn't so, I think sometimes it can sound so structured, but I think when you use the word flexible, it kind of highlights more that it's not about rigidity so much. It's not so much about not crossing a certain boundary, more about being aware when that kind of comes up and like kind of deflecting it, or kind of like one of the things you mentioned, which is like not giving it a place to land, and less like fighting it or like gritting your mind. And so that's just my comment.
Oh, thank you. This is another reason why I'd like to bring up the simile of the salt grove, because it's a gradual, like if you're gardening, it's some amount of persistence. The weeds are going to keep coming. And you just you have to keep at it. But then over time, the salt trees are just going to grow on their own. You're nurturing them. You're caring for them, and you're removing what's harmful to them. And this training is about protecting ourselves, our minds, from these unwholesome states. Not only are they harmful to others, but they're harmful to ourselves. So this is why the Buddha says we should train ourselves repeatedly. He said, this is how you should train yourself. Not that you automatically are going to, just because he says this, are going to be able to achieve a mind that's unaffected, unperverted, unchanged by whatever is going on around. It's a something to train towards. And if we are aware of our minds and see the harm. I mean, this is part of the training, is that when I experience anger, I can see the harm it's causing myself as well as other people. I can see how it's affecting this is one of the reasons why we get in touch with our bodies in meditation, is that if I'm aware of an angry thought coming up and I'm feeling my body suddenly getting tense, or I get hot or something, then I go, oh, this is hurting me. This mental state is not good for others and not good for myself. So it's a gradual process, and yeah, it's nothing we can force on ourselves. And yeah, again and again, he says this is how you should train yourself, not that this is how you should be right at this very minute. So thank you. Yeah. Being flexible, being kind to ourselves, being patient with ourselves is part of the training.
I wanted to reply to that in your example about the anger. So in that example, when you experience anger, I think sometimes I think it's also related to the teaching tonight. It can be like easy to identify with the anger. So that's part of the teaching, is not automatically like being pulled into it and feeling that like non-separation with that emotion, with that feeling. Is that related to it, the identity with these harmful states?
I think we should disidentify. Like I see it arising. This is a response that's conditioned in me, but I don't necessarily have to buy into it. Like my automatic response would be to get mad, but I don't have to feed it. So I think Thich Nhat Hanh would say, "Oh, I see you there, friend, anger." I don't know if I would call my anger a friend, but I see that anger arising. I'm not going to deny that it's coming up, or I might have an impulse to take more than I need, and I go, "Oh, I see that greed arising." So then, if I label it such, there's greed. Do I want to identify with that? Do I want to nurture that? No, I don't. So that may stop me from at least reacting. And then the repeating, like some phrases, just like you might repeat, may I abide in well-being, or may I be happy, may others be happy. So you're saying some phrases of loving kindness, so you're reinforcing these ideas. It's the same thing with these, what the Buddha says, how you should train yourself. My mind will remain unaffected. I will utter no harmful words. I will have compassion for the other person's welfare. So if I have that kind of like repeating in my own mind, just kind of as a training, no matter how people speak to me, then when a situation arises, then I have this kind of reinforced in my mind, and I might be thinking that I might feel that my mind has been affected, but I don't have to go to speaking harmful words. And then hopefully I can bring up compassion for that other person. And And maybe it's not in the moment. It's interesting because Bhante Sujato says, using that person as an object of your meditation. So maybe you weren't able to do it quite at that moment where the person was saying cruel or whatever words towards you, that dishonest words or untimely words or whatever. And we got mad and we go, oh, I could see I'm starting to really blame that person and get angry at them. Can I use that person as an object of meditation? Can I be compassionate for their welfare later on, like once I'm out of that situation? And usually when I'm upset with somebody, I start with myself. And this is another thing I didn't bring up in the when I was talking, but it talks about one's heart being imbued with loving kindness. So I think you really need to start with yourself to imbue your own heart with loving kindness by directing loving kindness towards yourself. And once your heart is filled with loving kindness, then you can extend it to others. So if I'm feeling upset with somebody, I could have compassion for myself also. And once I'm able to have that compassion and loving kindness imbuing my heart, then I can go to the person that was difficult. So it may not be right at that very moment. It might take some, like preparing our own hearts, because we felt hurt, because we felt offended, whatever. And then the compassion can arise. And then the heart of loving kindness can arise. So it's a training. It takes time, like the sal tree grow. And then it can be our sanctuary, that our heart is always imbued with loving kindness.
Ayya.
Yes?
So I just wanted to say, so I was thinking the Buddha has given us guidelines for like what sort of speech, how to develop our speech. So while I was listening to the sutta, when you were explaining today, in my mind, this thought occurred. Here in the sutta, Buddha is giving us the listening skills that we needed to develop. That was kind of a thought that occurred in my mind. The sutta is talking about listening skills. So as to how we protect our mind, I just wanted to just say that thought occurred in my mind. But thank you so much. You explained the lot of little details, and it certainly feels like a very high bar, but I see how much benefit it can bring even in day-to-day life for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't think about that, about the listening skills, but just really hearing the other person. Sometimes we do jump to conclusions and we may not understand how the person's even approaching us. And we might just go from our negative conditioning to assume that the person isn't speaking to us in a way that we would appreciate. But Also, maybe that's where the compassion comes in. Is that what you're thinking about, the listening skills, that you're compassionate for their welfare? So
Right. I mean, the skills that we needed to develop when we listen when someone speaks to us, how we need to develop our heart
mm-hmm.
to protect from the bad influences or the negativity of the mind.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it quite like that, but that's true. I mean, we are needing to hear what that person says. And then, but with our hearts or our minds not being jostled in any way as we're listening,
Mhm.
and then having compassion for the other person, no matter how they're speaking. They could be speaking to us truthfully, gently, and all this, that we're having compassion for them either way, whether it's true or false, or kind or difficult.
Maybe listening skills or maybe hearing skills, more like.
Hearing skills, yeah. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
One thing I want to mention is
Yes.
that when we do restrain ourselves and we don't fight back with the other person, when we do just stay with the feelings within our bodies, regardless of what they are, and we have enough respect for those feelings to just be, and eventually they quiet down, time after time, that gives us a tremendous amount of freedom and joy to know that we don't have to react. We can just stay with the feelings. And bit by bit, that gets easier to do. And there is this feeling of freedom that we don't have to be conditioned and pulled so quickly.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. So this is certainly a starting point. Ideally, our minds won't be, our minds will be unaffected, but
But until we get there,
until we get there, yeah. So this is one way we're training our minds, is that we don't react. We may have those feelings arising, and we have compassion for ourselves, that and patience. This is another thing, is the patience.
because we do have that high bar that we know of, and we want to aspire to reach that bar. So it just takes time and patience and care for ourselves, for others, for whatever the situation is.
So it starts out that, well, it says our minds will, ideally our minds will be unaffected and will utter no harmful words or evil words or bad words. And so this is at least to be able to stop the verbal response. And even the internal verbal response, we might feel that, like I was saying, I might feel this kind of anger rising in myself, and I go, oh, there's the anger. But then I don't say, oh, this so-and-so made me mad.
It's not them making you mad.
So it's not them making me mad, I'm making me mad. And so then, yeah, to be compassionate towards ourselves and the other as well. And that was very beautiful, about just being there with, being aware of the feeling, not denying the feeling.
But not necessarily needing to act out either, just feeling it.
Just feeling it, just experiencing it and letting it pass. Yeah, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
We are supposed to end at 8:30.
Oh, were we supposed to end at 8:30? Oh, I was thinking about the what time was with 9. So yeah, so thank you all for joining us, especially Ayatata. Thank you so much for your comment and your information about the it says awana, and then there's warana in Sanskrit, means a vivid description with a positive connotation. Wanam. Yeah, wana is like color, something that you like rouge would enhance your face color. But yeah, so maybe it was taken as something positive, but awana is the discoloring. So so yeah, there's a lot of words. It's Pali and Sanskrit are very close together. So we can end with a homage to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. So I'll turn towards the altar. If you have an image or you want to bow towards the screen, that's fine too. But if you have your own Buddha image in your dwelling, you're welcome to turn in that direction, and we'll say Araham. Araham Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivade. Vakato Bhagavata Jambo Dhammam Namasa. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sangham Namami. Thank you all for your patient listening. Good to see you all. Good to see you.
Anumodana.
Thank you, Ayya. Good night, Ayya.
You're welcome.
Good night.
Triple gem blessings.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining us.